Good afternoon, everyone. This is Laurel Birchfield with the Michigan Coalition Against Homelessness. Thank you for joining us today for our Legislative Action Committee meeting. We are just a couple minutes behind, so I'm going to ask everyone to just hold tight for just another minute or two more, and then we will get started. Thank you. All right, everyone. I think we're getting close to being able to get started, but before we start with our content, I'm just going to go over some housekeeping rules for folks. I see a lot of the people on our call have joined us before, so please forgive the, the repetition here. But I do want to let those of you who have not joined us before about how to kind of interact with GoToWebinar, which is our platform we're using for today. This is intended to be an opportunity for all of us to connect about advocacy issues around the state and really hear from all of you just as much as it is a chance for us to report out on what's happening. So even though everyone is going to be muted for this call, we definitely encourage you to participate by sending us questions using the chat box, or if you're in a space where you don't have a lot of background noise and you feel comfortable, go ahead and unmute yourself if you have a question or if you have a comment. We will make space throughout for you to do so and to participate in that way. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of check in here and make sure everyone can hear me. So if you're able to use the question or the chat box, let me know if you're having any audio problems or any problems seeing my screen. And Eric, it looks like you've unmuted yourself. Are you sounding good? Are you feeling good about moving forward?
Well, I'm just trying to get organized. I think I can get through it.
Right.
Hello, everybody. Okay, so we're ready to get going? Or are you still waiting for feedback from people?
Nope, it looks like people can hear me. I'm hoping they can see the screen. I just have one or two quick last things, and then we'll get started on the content. Also, on your dashboard on the GoToWebinar, you should see a space for handouts. We have uploaded this as a PDF for you to play along. The links that we're going to have embedded in the PowerPoint are also active in that PDF, or they were in the agenda that was sent out by email this morning. So you should be able to access all the information we're putting forward. And then finally, we are recording this. We'll be sending out an email with the recording and notes from this meeting after the fact. It usually comes out a day or two after we end our call. So be on the lookout for that, because we do have items that we're going to ask you guys to take action on, and you should be able to access all of that through the follow-up email. And I think that's it for me. Eric, do you want to go ahead and get started? I'll move forward to our agenda. Really quick, we have had a quick change. We're going to talk about federal updates before our state updates, because Eric does have to leave us early today. And I'll let you take it away, Eric.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm going to be leaving it coming back. You know, it's logistics that you have when you have kids going back to school during COVID. So I apologize for that. But let's get the ball rolling and try to cover some of the key federal updates, things that are happening, starting off with respect to COVID-19 and what's happening at the federal level. So coronavirus relief package, you've all heard a lot about that. We've been talking about that a bit. It looks as though the next round of relief is dead in the water at this point. There have been negotiations taking place between the House and the Senate that have not come to fruition. And it does sound like there is not necessarily a hunger on the part of the Senate to try to make a grand bargain, that they would just as soon hold off until after the election at this point. So Some are saying the House is not willing to bend, but if you look at what was in the Senate's proposed package, it was very light on the kinds of resources that we think are necessary to address the concerns of organizations like ours and working with the populations that we're working with. So don't know whether or not there will be any way to revive that, but we'll see. Pressure may mount as we move forward, and there may be some action, but right now does not look like anything is imminent, unfortunately. Wanted to switch gears a little bit and talk about the CDC eviction moratorium. All of you hopefully have heard about that. A couple of key things to keep in mind. Number one is it's been implemented through the CDC. The question is whether or not it's going to work itself out in the courts as to whether or not that is deemed legitimate. But for the time being, that is something that is being implemented across the country. So I want to make sure that you're all aware of what this is. And in essence, it's saying, hey, if you are at risk of losing your home, whether it be from an eviction or whether it be because of or a rental or your home, this is an opportunity to help keep you housed due to a concern about COVID itself, and that it does not relinquish your responsibilities financially if indeed you are remaining in your home, in your apartment. But what it does is postpone things. So there's information that's put out. There's an FAQ that was put out through the National Low Income Housing Coalition that hopefully you can take a look at if you're not familiar with it already. But along with that, something that's important I wanted to mention to you is that there is a declaration form that tenants or homeowners would need to sign that's in essence saying, yes, I certify that I have financial issues and that I may not be able to stay in my home. If I'm evicted, I may not have another alternative that's suitable, et cetera, that I don't earn more than X number of dollars, and that I will continue to make a good faith effort to pay my rent as much as I can, and that I understand at the end of the period of time through December 31st, 2020, when the eviction moratorium will end, that I will be fully responsible for all of the outstanding balance owed, including fees and penalties, etc. So that is that in a nutshell. Again, hopefully you're all familiar with that, but I want to let you know that that is in place, and we do have information available if you click on the link that's provided in the agenda. Related to COVID-19 also is the EIP. I wanted to make sure that we did talk about, yeah.
Sorry, this is Laura. Can I hop in on the eviction moratorium?
Sure.
Thank you. I wanted to just kind of tie this directly into the state eviction diversion program. We spoke about this at length in our last LAC meeting, and I know that so many of you on the call are familiar and are operating these, administering these funds locally. We asked this exact question as a poll question last time, but it's been a month now, and so I was hoping I could kind of survey the group. And so you should be seeing a question pop up on your screen right now that's kind of just a check-in to see how far you think the funds that you have for your EDP will go. And if you guys could just take a minute and let us know. We know that we know folks are doing a lot of reporting right now on this through HMIS, and I know that Mishda is coordinating a lot of communications around this. But if you could just, very unscientifically let us know how you're feeling a month and a half in now about how far the funds are going to go for you. And I do see that people are responding.
My apologies. I was given instructions by Laurel to pause so that she could do the poll, and I summarily ignored her. So.
I'm used to it. And Michelle, thank you. We got a very good kind of push here that we really should be asking how many landlords are wanting to participate in the program. And that's an excellent point. We know that landlords, this is voluntary, landlords are being asked to forgive a certain amount of rent. And so if somebody would like to give feedback on that, feel free to send us a message, or we can unmute you if you want to chat through that. Michelle, if that's something you want to talk about. But I am going to go ahead and close the poll that we do have open and share the results. So you should be able to see on the screen. Looks like people are feeling okay-ish about how their funds are going to go for the rest of this year. Remember, these funds do have to be used up by the end of this calendar year. We do know that there are a lot of conversations happening, not just, at the congressional level about that stalled, disappointing effort to get more rent relief. But, at the state level, at local levels, we know that there are efforts to kind of bring more money in. There's efforts to see if we can extend the amount of time that people have to use these funds. HUD did just release the third round of CARES Act CDBG funding, and that had very strong guidance for that funding to be used for rental assistance and homelessness prevention. So there's a lot of puzzle pieces kind of being moved around to try and support these efforts and make sure that we're keeping people housed. It's just a matter of when we're going to get all those pieces to fit together and what the picture is going to look like at the end. So thank you for sharing that. And absolutely, if you are having issues with landlords not wanting to participate, or even if you're having great results and you want to share with us that landlords are coming to the table enthusiastically, let us know, because that is definitely more information that would be very helpful for us as we're thinking about how to advocate for better policies, improved outcomes, increased funding, obviously. So thank you, Eric, for letting me to kind of take us off that path for a little bit.
No, I'm glad that you did. And it does make me think of something that's a clear distinction between the CDC eviction moratorium and the eviction diversion program here in Michigan, is that we are talking about having funds related to the debts that are owed here with our program. With the CDC's moratorium, of course, there are no dollars attached to that. And again, that's kind of kicking the can down the road. So what we're looking at is, at the end of December, potentially being another round of evictions, where we're looking at people facing the situation where they do not have any funds available to be making good on the full amount that they're owed, and so evictions may be taking place at that point in time. So please pay attention to that. Again, that's why it's so much, why it's so important for us to be pressuring members of Congress to be pushing forward with the next round of funding to address the issue. So moving on to the EIP, this is related to COVID in the sense that families were eligible to receive, individuals were eligible to receive stimulus payments that were $1,200 for adults plus $500 for qualifying children. As many of you know, not everybody was able to get that automatically put into their bank account or receive a check. So there is still time for individuals to apply for that. They have until October 15th to actually file for it. So I think if you can communicate that out to the people you're working with to make sure that if indeed they have not accessed it, have not benefited from that, there is still time to do that, but there is an action step that they'll have to take to make sure that they are able to access it. So don't want to miss that opportunity. Okay, moving on. The proposed rule change for equal access to housing in HUD programs. We've talked about this before. That does relate to sexual orientation, gender identity, and access that may or may not be provided through provider agencies. Wanted to just give you a quick update that that rule is still being reviewed, and that comments are still being accepted until September 22nd, which is coming up relatively quickly. It's very important for you as an individual or organization to think in terms of submitting some comments. Every comment is important. You do not have to submit a 20-page document, a white paper. Just having a very simple, straightforward paragraph or two communicating your thoughts about any changes that may be made with respect to this rule. So as is, we're concerned about it being adjusted midstream. It's something that had been proposed previously, or some adjustments proposed previously. We think this has a negative impact because it does provide flexibility for organizations or agencies to, we think, isolate people out, select them out because of a lack of commitment to making availability to everyone in their facilities. So we'd like you to consider reaching out on that one. Housing Saves Lives campaign. Was there something you wanted to talk about specifically, Laurel, with respect to that? There is a link there that you'd be able to take a look at some information on. Did you want to speak to that with respect to the equal access
Nope,
rule?
it's just another resource. This is the national campaign. If you link to that, if you're looking for things that you want to submit via comment, they have a lot of great studies and stats that you can reference. Now, they do have an ability to send your comment via their campaign. I'm actually going to encourage you to submit original contents directly through the register. A strategy I'm hearing other states are utilizing is to just bog down the system, because as you'll see when we get to disparate impact, HUD is not necessarily being super responsive when they get comments through this public comment period, but they do have to actually go through and register all the comments that they receive. So slowing down the process does have an impact. So just want to kind of put that out there so everybody kind of thinks strategically about how to participate. And original comments do go farther. I also want to acknowledge that there are efforts to submit comments from our state agencies, and that there is definitely pushback from our funders to make sure that our population is protected under the original intent of the equal access rule. So that's all. Thank you. Eric, if you're speaking, you're muted.
And I am talking to myself, obviously. Thank you very much for letting me know that. So the next item is the U.S. Census. As many of you know, this has been the year of the census, and there's been a lot of work done so far. COVID has certainly stood in the way of the progress that was anticipated. We are moving forward in assisting through MICA and the HMIS system to help to further things. And I want to find the excuse me a second, I just had a document up that I wanted to refer to, and I've lost it. Bear with me, folks. My apologies. So there is a link for a memo that we put together about a plan to collect information September 22nd through the 24th. Again, HMIS is assisting with that. For anyone who is engaged in HMIS, we'd like you to be aware of this and make sure that your organizations are actively engaged in this process. Very important for you. So we aren't going to get into the weeds on it. Just want to make sure that you're aware of it. Again, there's some guidance provided if you follow the link to see how exactly HMIS is going to be involved, and would like to make sure that you're aware of that. And again, committed to participating in that process. We know how important the census is. And we know that the undercount could sadly, affect our representation in Congress. So we need to make sure that we're addressing that. So please participate. And the disparate impact rule as well. I'm trying to open up the document, and I apologize. That it has taken effect. It is now formalized, and we've talked about this before. I don't know if we need to go into any detail on it, if anybody has any questions on it, but we did want to just indicate that it has taken effect. Laurel, I don't know if you had anything specifically you wanted to add to that.
No, just again, wanted to notify folks, the link does take you to the final language. It's very similar to what we saw before public comment opened with the proposed rule by HUD. It's shifting the burden, making it a lot harder under our Fair Housing Act to argue that discrimination is happening. Even the disparate impact rule does kind of set it up so that even if the intent is not to discriminate, but discrimination happens through an action that a landlord, property manager, or realtor puts out, that there is opportunity to litigate and try and correct that so that discrimination can be, so that we can avoid discrimination. The HUD rule just makes it so much harder and shifts that burden onto the tenant or the homeowner to try and, or the person seeking a home to try and prove that. So it's just another instance of HUD kind of weakening the protections that we have in place to keep people housed right now.
Laurel, I have to run. I apologize to folks. I will be back shortly. So that's the end of the federal report. So I'm going to turn it back over to Laurel.
Thanks, Eric, and we'll see you in a bit. I'm going to pause. We just kind of went over a lot of information. Eric did have to kind of go over that quickly to get out the door. So I just want to make sure that there aren't any questions that folks have, either about the COVID related or some of the more general federal updates. We did get a question specific to the EIP about if there were any changes with regards to if students could access that EIP, that check that the federal government was sending out to individual taxpayers. Under my knowledge is that under the existing CARES Act, students were not eligible, but there were talks about changing that under the HEROES Act, which was the bill that the House passed to try and send out another round of checks. Obviously, that was not passed in the Senate. It stalled as part of the congressional update that Eric gave at the very beginning. So that has not taken effect. I don't believe that there were any efforts to go back and change the language around the existing EIP and the existing CARES Act provision. But if anybody knows differently, please chime in and let us know. Now I'm not seeing any other questions about our federal updates, so I'm going to move on to our state, but do feel free to send in questions at any point about any of the content that we're going over. So state updates. The budget is still happening. We are getting some good news. In August, the Consensus Revenue Estimating Conference, which typically just reports out to the legislature twice a year, did another estimate and did report out. If you guys remember the last time, or maybe 2 months ago when we spoke, there was a really dire prediction that our state revenue was going to be really hit hard this year due to COVID. They anticipated a $3.2 billion shortfall. This new estimate that was put out in August is much better, but we're still estimating a shortfall, this time just of $926 million. So definitely a better situation that we're finding ourselves in with the state budget. A lot of that is because of the way that they have appropriated funding to try and address some of the issues that have come about due to COVID, and the way that our state government has really tried to address the issues in our economy. But without further congressional support and funding, we are going to be facing a much tighter budget this year than we had anticipated back when the budget talks first started in January and February. So I do not have an update about our budget priorities. As you remember, and anyone who attended our advocacy day back in March remembers, we did have specific items that we were asking the legislature to pass, including additional funding for homelessness diversion and funding to increase our per diem rate for our shelters. I don't have an update about whether or not those will be included in this year's budget or not. It does seem like a lot of the focus this year is on COVID and on some of the pressing needs that we're seeing with regards to healthcare and education. But hopefully they do get this passed before the end of the fiscal year, which is the end of this month. The new fiscal year does start October 1st. Hopefully we'll see a good budget passed, and we're gonna continue to have conversations with our state legislators and champions to see if we can get some continued support for homelessness services and housing insecurity resolutions moving into the next fiscal year. I do have just a couple quick packages of bills that I want to just notify everyone about. The Michigan Community Investment Pilot. This is being led by a coalition that is headed by CEDM, and they are pushing for House Bills 5820 and 5821. These, if you download the PDF, these links will take you to the language in the bills. These would allow for tax credits to be given to nonprofits that do community development. Housing is a huge part of this. It's built in with other provisions around community development. But we're hearing that when this was taken up in committee and testimony was given, there was a lot of questions about housing, and specifically concerns around like the lack of housing in our communities can be addressed through these bills. And so MICA we have not come out to support these yet. We're still discussing what our role is in this, but it is really heartening to hear that housing is a priority with our legislators right now. And we're hearing that this goes beyond just this package of bills, that housing is coming up fairly regularly when legislators are talking about how we invest in our communities and how we support our economies moving forward. To that effect, the Rural Workforce Housing Bills, House Bill 6102 and 6103, is another package that is looking at housing from a more specific and narrow lens. This is supported through a collaboration of Housing North, which is based in the northern part of our state, obviously. The link that you find on the PDF is to their analysis. And it does allow for property managers who own units that they would make available for workforce housing to get the homestead tax credit. This is something that is not allowed under the way that it's currently written to property managers. It is for primary residence only, but the homestead tax credit would be something that someone in this situation would be able to claim if they made their housing available for workforce housing. Now the catch to this is that that homestead tax goes to the school education fund, and so that would be taking money from that fund, which, as we know, is going to be a heavy ask right now. But again, it's just another indicator that there is a lot of good conversation happening at our state right now about how we invest in housing and how we move the needle in trying to make sure we have enough housing for our state. Eric, are you back already?
Cha to the ching. Yes, I am.
That was impressive. I only got through one slide. Perhaps I speak too much.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything, but
Fair enough.
just kidding.
Uh, so Eric, we just wrapped up our state updates. Was there anything you wanted to add?
Regarding the state, no, nothing beyond what you had planned on covering.
Okay. Um, I don't see any questions coming in, but again, just a reminder, you can send us questions, or if you have something that you'd like to say and you feel like you're in a space that doesn't have a lot of background noise, feel free to unmute yourself or ask me if I have you muted and you can't unmute yourself, and we'll get you set up to where you can talk. But we'll go ahead and move forward into another set of work that Mike is really excited to be working on, and that's our election work. We talked at length during our last LAC meeting about the things that we're doing and how we're trying to support all of you in the field with your voter registration, voter education, and candidate engagement work. So I'm not gonna go over all of that again, but I am gonna highlight some things coming up and things that you guys can be doing right now to be participating, because the election is not even 2 months away. It's November 3rd, so we're coming up on it really, really quickly. So I see a question coming in about voter registration. I'll get to that in just a second, but I do want to make sure that I'm answering any questions you guys have about voter registration and voter education work right now. So in the PDF on this page, the links will take you to the NLIHC campaign, Our Homes, Our Votes 2020, and they have a lot of really helpful tools about how you can participate and why we should be working to register folks in our homeless shelters, by our homeless service providers, living in low-income housing, and so on. Couple important dates that I want to make sure you guys are all aware. One has already passed, and that is the date that the Secretary of State made available absentee ballot requests online. As I'm sure a lot of you know, just in your own personal interaction with the election this year, absentee or mail-in ballots are going to be huge due to some of the issues we're seeing with some of the issues we're seeing with COVID-19. But it is also challenging because a lot of the issues that we're seeing with the post office. So we'll be doing a webinar in the future, a couple of weeks, to talk about absentee ballots in Michigan and how you can participate and how you can make sure that you are voting, even if you're not able to vote by mail, or sorry, vote in person this year. The online application for an absentee ballot does require an ID. And this is something that comes up regularly when we are talking about how we can register folks who are in our homeless shelters and are seeking our services, how we can get them registered to vote, because they may not have an ID. And so there are ways to do that. I'm going to go on my next slide to some information that you can post that has some kind of guidelines about how you can do that. But I just want to acknowledge that that is a barrier, and that's something that we're talking about, how we can kind of address and make sure that folks are able to still register to vote. You can do it in person at a clerk's office or by mail without a photo ID. You only need your ID or a driver's license if you're registering online, or I believe the day of, because they do allow same day registration. So looking at the rest of these dates, that was a weird kind of word vomit tangent there. So thank you for allowing me to go down that road. September 22nd is National Voter Registration Day. This is a national effort to get people to register to vote. And I have a link on here to their page, the campaign's page. So you can take the pledge and say that you are participating. It's also an excellent day to host a voter registration drive, or to put out your information about how to register to vote, or to talk to clients and guests about their plans to vote and check to see if they're registered. So I just really want to encourage everyone to think about September 22nd as an opportunity to participate in this work. And if you are interested in doing something specific, please reach out to me and we can talk about how we can support you in that. September 24th, this is the first time with a large general election that we in the state are allowed to do early in-person voting. So this is 40 days out from the election. You are able to go to your clerk's, or sorry, go to a specific location. I believe this link will take you to information that has the locations by district. And you can vote in person and you can do it early. So if you're worried about absentee ballots or if you're worried about voting on election day where there may be crowds, this is a great option so you can still cast your vote and you can help the people who you're serving cast their vote early as well. Last day to register to vote online or by mail is October 19th. The last day to request an absentee ballot by mail is October 30th. I believe both of these mail options, that is received by. So the application has to be received by October 19th or October 30th, not postmarked. And then November 3rd, as I said, you can register to vote on the day of the election at your clerk's office, and that's also election day. So please make sure that you are aware of some of these important dates and that you're thinking about how you can support folks to be able to register and cast their ballot this year. Speaking of National Voter Registration Day, Micah is hosting a webinar on that day from 12 to 1:30, and we're going to be talking about some of those challenges for voter registration for disenfranchised populations. We're going to be talking about IDs and how you can still register to vote without one and how you can cast your vote on election day without your photo ID. We're also going to be joined by folks who are going to address issues that formerly incarcerated individuals, those additional barriers that they face and concerns and considerations we are able to take for that population. We'll be joined by someone to speak specifically about accessibility and how we can work with people who have accessibility needs and the provisions that our state provides so that people can have an accessible voting experience. And I believe if all the stars are aligning for us, we'll be able to get someone to speak about youth and the challenges that youth face, and specifically LGBTQ youth and the challenges they face with trying to register and cast their ballots. So the link on the screen is also in the PDF, and you should be able to register to participate on September 22nd. And I do hope that you join us. Even if you can't attend, we record all of our webinars and we're happy to send that out so you can share it with your network. It should be a good opportunity to kind of just sit and learn, even if you don't have any plans to participate in voter registration day or help with voter registration. It's still just a really great opportunity to kind of know what those challenges and opportunities are. So here are the posters that I mentioned earlier. These are things that were developed by our intern, and we are making these available for free. You can access on the link on the PDF to request a certain number of each one of our posters to put up in your location. I recognize on the screen I have October 20th as an incorrect date on those. Our final version of the posters do have the correct date and our correct information. But these are just, again, helpful tools that we're making available so that you can assist folks and hopefully start a conversation about why people should be registering to vote and then casting their ballot this year. Another activity, and I spoke at length about this in our last call, so I'm not going to do a whole lot, but we do engage with candidates, and the primary way we do that is through questionnaires. We send it out to all of the candidates and ask them to participate. We don't always get the best response, especially because we are a state agency and we're not in their district. So a request that we have to all of you and your networks is to help us. And so I have the links on the bottom of this slide for you to be able to send to your state and federal candidates and ask them to participate in our questionnaire. This information is collected and put together in a format that we then send back out into the community so that you have access to all of their answers and can then decide how you want to engage with the candidate. And then you can also have that information after the election so you can engage with them once they're elected officials. So I'm going to pause here on this ways to get involved because I think there's a long list of things here for you to be thinking about how you'd like to participate. But before we get into it, I would like to kind of just understand where you are in thinking about participation. So the last time we talked about voter or election work, I asked how many people were doing what kinds of activities. I'd like to ask this time what kind of barriers you're facing. And so I'm launching another poll for all of you that should be popping up on your screen. If you can just take a minute and let us know if you are experiencing barriers, if you think that you are not able or you're trying to put together some stuff, but you're having some issues, let us know what those look like. Because one thing that we're seeing as we're talking to folks in the field is that this is not something that is necessarily happening as often as we would love for it to be happening. Agencies are not taking on election work to the degree that we'd like to see it happen. So I see some people are responding. I'm going to give you guys just another minute or so. I'm going to try and hold back my word vomit for a little bit and let you guys think about your answers. I tell you, Eric, when you don't get to see people in real life, you definitely just kind of ramble when you have an opportunity and an engaged audience to listen to you, right? Oh, see now, even Eric isn't responding to me. All right, looks like we've got some good responses. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll question and share it. And not surprising, it looks like a lot of you are reporting that there is a lack of capacity to be able to take on a lot of these activities. Completely understandable and truthfully what I expected to see. Some of you are reporting that it's not a focus or urgent need for your clients, also understandable. The lack of knowledge and information to participate, this is the one thing that I actually can help with. So if you are feeling that you don't have the information you need to be able to do voter registration or talk to your clients and guests about why they should vote this year, please reach out to us. We're happy to help and happy to get that information to you. And then finally, other. So that is the big unknown. If you answered other, if you have the opportunity and are feeling comfortable to kind of type in the chat box, let us know what that looks like for you. That might be something that we can assist with or at least brainstorm with you to figure out how we can address those other barriers that you're experiencing. So thank you everyone for taking the time to answer that question. And let's just kind of briefly go over some of these things on the slide. Hopefully you're all able to see my screen again. A lot of these we've already covered, but I want to talk about the very top one, ways to get involved. Pledge to support and assist people experiencing homelessness with Everyone Votes. This is a campaign that the National Alliance to End Homelessness has put on, and it's actually a really helpful tool. There is a pledge that you can take, and then they send you resources and give you more information about how you can participate. So if you have the interest and the opportunity, I encourage you to go to that link and just see how NAEH is putting out information about voter in work this year, and if any of it seems like something you can take on. And I think that's all that I have about our election work. I'm going to pause just see if any questions have come in. If there are any comments about some of those other barriers that you guys are facing when it comes to election work. I'm not
Not seeing
seeing.
any questions or comments, so if anybody has any thoughts, don't be bashful.
Good, finally, someone speaking besides me. Thanks, Eric.
I don't want you to get a complex.
Oh, already there. All right. Well, feel free to go ahead and send in those questions while we're talking about our next update, and then we'll have plenty of time at the end of this call for all of you guys to kind of let us know what's going on in your communities too. So we just like to take the opportunity to kind of let you know about other things that Micah's working on or things that you can kind of get involved in. And so this time at this LAC call, we wanted to remind everyone that November is Michigan's Homeless Awareness Month. About 2 or 3 years ago, Micah made the decision to acknowledge and recognize that Homeless Awareness Week was something that a lot of our community members were participating in, but kind of all over the month, not specific just to the one designated week. So we expanded it to a whole month so that we get to talk about homelessness and raise awareness and celebrate our homeless service providers all month long. So that's what we're going to be doing this year. The first thing that we always do as an agency is we try to pick a theme that can be illustrated in a poster that again we make available for everybody to access and post up in your locations. And so we would like your feedback to kind of know what you think is resonating for you this year. The link that is on the PDF will take you to a Facebook poll, and that's absolutely something you can go to and share with your network and ask them to weigh in. But I'm also going to do a quick poll here, and you should see this popping up on your screen. What theme should we choose for this year? And our options are Champions to the Challenge, Home is Essential, or The Vital Work Continues. And as you're thinking about it, I'll give you a little background. This year, we want to go beyond public awareness work around homelessness. We traditionally really elevate some of the stats and some of the data that comes out of the Campaign to End Homelessness annual report. This year we plan on doing that again, but we also want to just recognize that this year has been hard, and our homeless service providers are really stepping up and doing amazing work as a result of all the challenges COVID has tossed at us. So we also want to elevate all of you and really acknowledge all the fantastic work you're doing. So the theme this year, we really want to kind of capture both of those approaches to raising awareness around homelessness, but also really honoring all of the work that's being done. So I am seeing that people are still casting votes kind of slowly. So I'm going to give it just another second as folks are thinking about which theme really resonates for them. This is really helpful for us because we're going to be launching our poster contest in the next week or so. And we'll be sending that information out to this group as well. And we really encourage you to send it out to your community. There is a $100 Visa gift card as a prize for the poster that is selected. We'd love to see students, we'd love to see people who are within your service response system, either clients and guests or staff and volunteers. We'd love to see them all participate. So once we get that information out with this year's theme, please do share that. And I'm seeing the voting slow down, so I'm going to go ahead and close this poll and share the results with all of you. Fairly overwhelming, the response that everybody, or the theme that everybody seems to like the most is home is essential, but a good number of you also selected champions to the challenge and the vital work continues. So thank you, everyone. I really appreciate that. And one last poll, because I love making you guys all stop eating lunch long enough to click on your computer. What are y'all doing this year for Homeless Awareness Month? I have just a couple options on there. You can pick as many as are correct for you. But we know that this year may look a little different, that you may not have the same capacity. You may not be able to do in-person events. You may just not have the focus on Homeless Awareness Month this year. So let us know what you're thinking about doing, what you've already kind of got set up. And again, if you select that other option, feel free to use the chat box to let us know what kind of events and activities you're doing.
I see the voting is a little slow, but they're still trickling in. So please take a look, make a choice. We'll keep the ball rolling here.
And it's okay if you haven't decided on activities yet either, because we're still a little ways out. It's always helpful to be able to plan some of these things far enough in advance that you can, really develop a robust activity. But we also know that you can be really successful with events that you put together kind of closer to the actual month as well. So don't feel like you have to have everything lined up to have a successful activity this year. You can absolutely still be in the process of figuring that out. And let us know how we can help too. All right,
So,
I think
polls they're a little bit like the bag of popcorn in the microwave. You don't know when to end it because you keep hearing another pop or two, a couple more kernels. So I
keep
think
adding
we're
those
probably,
5 seconds.
yes, I think we're ready.
All right, let me share that with the group. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of you definitely feel like you have capacity and plan on doing information sharing with your social media, other media sources. That's something that we'll assist with. We'll definitely put out messaging and infographics just like we have in the past, and you are more than welcome to share those. We actually very much encourage you to do so. Several of you are doing events. The Project Homeless Connect or resource fairs are things that we see traditionally around this time of year, so I'm glad to see some of you are still planning on doing that. And I'm very excited that some of you are also planning on connecting with your elected officials because we feel that this is an excellent time to be able to do that. And I'm just checking the comment box, and it looks like some people are still kind of figuring it out, and at least one group is planning on something in October, which is great. I'm glad that you're able to put together a Connect event, and even though it's Homeless Awareness Month in November, doesn't mean that we can't be doing this kind of stuff at other times as well. Eric, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, just that, as you've already said, as anyone is considering doing anything, and we might be of assistance, please reach out. If there's anything that you're planning, we would love to hear about it because we want to help to cross promote as well. So let's stay engaged about this. And this is a particularly important time for us to be using this observance as an opportunity to talk about the issues that we're facing now, particularly with respect to COVID, and the fact that the additional stimulus funds may not be forthcoming. So we will need to be hitting the ground running and helping to make sure people know that this is an issue that's important, particularly now.
Thank you. And I think that's really all that we have in terms of our updates. So this is the part of the call where we pause and we see if anybody would like to comment either via the chat box or by unmuting yourself and let us know what's happening in your community. And that could be anything related to how the eviction diversion program is working, to what kind of advocacy you're doing, what you're hearing from candidates, just anything that you'd like to share with the group and with Micah. So I'm just going to kind of pause and see if anybody has anything. Eric, is there anything that you'd like to share?
We do have some comments that were coming in, some questions just to share if I can get to it. Michelle's indicating committee is still getting together. Is this where staff capacity is sometimes the issue? Our Connect event is actually in October, going to be mobile Go to Them event this year. That's interesting, Maggie. Thank you for sharing that. Would like to know how that's actually working. If you could pass something along to us, that would be helpful to know.
And I'm not seeing any kind of updates or anybody indicate that they'd like to be unmuted. So maybe I spoke too soon. Ah, Eric, Maggie shared that she'd happy to kind of follow up and we'll share some information about that
Yeah,
mobile Connect event.
thank you. Yeah, I see that.
Thank
I'm trying to look down in chats and I couldn't see the questions anymore.
you. All right. Well, I think that's it for us. If you do have an update that you'd like to share with Micah, feel free to send it to us by email. We can always share it out with the group via our follow-up email and notes. Or if it's just something that you'd like to share with us and let us know about what's happening in your community, feel free to let us know that too. Our next meeting is scheduled for October 5th. That's going to be coming up rather quickly. We did move this meeting back a week for the holidays, so it'll be just a couple of weeks before we all get together again. Hopefully we'll have some exciting news about the budget and about kind of our COVID response and other advocacy that's happening around the state. But feel free to get in touch between now and then if you guys have anything that you want to chat about. And hopefully we'll see you on our September 22nd webinar. And hopefully we'll make some progress in getting some of you guys set up with election work if that's anything you're interested in. Eric, do you have any last
Just one
words?
thing that comes to mind here, we lose track of time and who we've talked to over those series of months. Did we introduce Allison? Has she been on a LAC call previously, or is this her first Monday?
This is her first, and I didn't want to put her on the spot, but
Oh, well, I
Allison.
apologize. So let me just take a moment to let everybody on the call know that if you don't already, we have brought someone in who's taking over, filling the shoes of Jason Weller, who has left us for greener pastures at Mishta. Allison Green is joining us. She's on today. So Allison, I thought you might just want to say hello to everybody before we sign off, and I have to apologize to you in private.
Hi everyone. Yep, like Eric said, this is Allison Green. I'm excited to be at MICA. I've been doing homeless services for a long time, so I'm really happy to be here and continue the work.
And she comes to us most recently from Outwayne COC as their coordinator. So very happy to have her on board and get her immersed also in the advocacy work. So thank you for humoring us, Allison, and my apologies for not introducing you on the front end.
No worries.
Okay, with that, I think we're all set unless anybody had anything else that they wanted to share, but it looks like we have probably reached the end of our capacity. I think we're all pooped out and probably our lunches are done and we're ready to get back to work fully. So thank you all for participating. We'll see you in a month. Take care and good luck with things.
Thanks, everyone.